The Blue Jackets had a chance to do the funniest thing possible in last night's game, and because they hate me personally, they decided to do the opposite of that. So we're going to talk about the loss to the Edmonton Oilers in today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Foster. With me is my co-host, Hayden Halshorn. It's the first show with both of us on in what feels like 7 years. So hopefully we are both back for good now. We'll see how it goes. But we're here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube and on Sirius XM. Today's episode is also brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. So, last night happened. How many times have we seen basically this exact game from this team this season? Of we get 2 periods of good hockey, 2 periods of great hockey, frankly, and they fall apart in the third. I've seen this so many times with this team, and like at a certain point, you have to figure out how to play a full 60 minutes. But Same Blue Jackets, they are now tied with the San Jose Sharks for the least amount of regulation wins in the NHL. They have 9 regulation wins in the 46 games that they have played. It's not good. It's not good. It's just this is so frustrating. And from the look on Hayden's face, he feels exactly the same way. Like, they give you hope for the first 2 periods. They outshoot the Edmonton Oilers, who are on a 13-game win streak, and you think, hey, maybe they'll do the thing. And then that third period just kills them. And I don't understand it. Like, why do they keep doing this? What keeps going wrong?
Yeah, there's a lot of things wrong with this team. And it's one of those things, we're watching this game last night. I actually had a sigh of relief when they lost the game because it's what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be losing. They are within 7 points of the Sharks for that last place in the NHL, which we know doesn't mean anything because you have to win the lottery, which I don't think either the Jackets or Sharks fans really believe they have a chance, considering Chicago's going to be down there. And, got to get the Blackhawks back up to dynasty speed. So, but no, it is important for the Jackets to try to get dead last in the NHL, and they're getting close. So, but yeah, this was a classic Blue Jackets game in the sense that they have that goal, Kent Johnson to Dmitry Voronkov, which I thought was a great line, by the way. I actually thought Kent Johnson, Voronkov, and Marchenko was a lot of fun, caused a lot of chaos, but that's just like you have one good play the whole game, and that's pretty much it. And then the rest is put on the backs of the defensemen. And, the defensemen, they can't stop everybody on that team. And granted, it wasn't their usual suspects that got it done for the Oilers last night. But I'm starting to see, Jay, kind of what you've been talking about all year. You've been talking about how this defense really stinks, and the issues haven't really seemed to have gotten any better. Like, it just seems to be pretty much the same. I'm starting to see that because, like, what was Andrew Peak doing on that second goal? Like, he's just standing there doing nothing. Damon Severson's not very tough. He's not really like this. Is the defensemen are just weak in front of the goalie. There's no bite to them. There's nothing. There's no like effort to try to clear the puck. It's just I'm gonna be in the right position. I'm never gonna make a play, and it kills the Jackets. Granted, they only scored 1 goal, so it didn't matter. But yeah, quintessential Blue Jackets game. This is what it's all been like this year. I mean, credit the Oilers; they've won 14 in a row. They're fun to watch. Hopefully, they keep winning because I'd love to see McDavid and Draisaitl go on a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, and like that's the frustrating thing is you look at this roster, and I kind of talked about this a little bit in yesterday's episode when I previewed the game, is that like these two rosters don't match up player for player. You know, the Blue Jackets don't have a McDavid. They don't have a Draisaitl. They might. I still think that Draisaitl is a pretty good template for what Adam Fantilli could turn into, and if he turns into, you know, half the player that Draisaitl is, then the Blue Jackets will have done okay there. But they should be able to hold their own against this team. And they didn't. Credit to Stuart Skinner, who was excellent. Elvis, not good enough. We'll talk about the goaltending in a little bit, but I wanted to go back to kind of the forward lines, which exactly the same thing against the Devils. The top 2 lines, bad. Bottom 2 lines, great. I agree. I like that Marchenko, Voronkov, Johnson line a lot. I still would flip Voronkov and Fantilli, but as of right now, and I think actually what they did was they flipped Johnson and Fantilli for a little bit last night. I'm sure I saw a handful of shifts that were Fantilli, Voronkov, Marchenko, which is again a line that I really liked. But if your top 2 lines are consistently going to be the worst lines, like it's just not good enough. And if you match them up against the Oilers, like the Oilers put Draisaitl and McDavid back on the line in that third period, and they went nuclear, like 8 scoring chances for, 2 against. The McDavid line was fine anyway, 7 for, 5 against. Like, you have to do better than what the Blue Jackets did last night. I understand that you don't ever really stop McDavid, you just kind of contain him. But the top 6 is going to have to give us something, because right now it is 6 perfectly acceptable players. Well, 5 perfectly acceptable top 6 players and Jack Roslovic, and they're giving me nothing. You know, Cole Sillinger had a game against the Devils. Okay, fair enough. That line also got eaten alive by the Devils. The Fantilli, Jenner, Roslovic line is doing nothing because they insist on having Boone Jenner. Also, I was going to look this up. Boone Jenner played again the most ice time of any forward on the Blue Jackets. What are we doing? He's just back from injury. He's just back from having 6 to 8 weeks off. I don't remember how long it has been. He played the most ice time against the Devils and was terrible. He's played the most ice time last night against the Oilers, and again, terrible. Kent Johnson played 14 minutes. Dmitry Voronkov played 12:39. What are we doing here? I don't understand. If they were playing well and like just not getting the bounces, I would get it, but they're not. Like, you can look up basically any metric for players like Boone Jenner, who I want it known. I like Boone Jenner a lot. I think Boone Jenner is a perfectly serviceable middle 6 player. He is not up to speed from his injury. He is being outchanced. He is being outworked. He is being outskated. Like, I don't understand what the coaching staff is seeing that makes them think, yes, we have to put Boone Jenner out there. Same thing with the defense. And I'll not harp on it for too long because I've been ranting for like 4 minutes now, but you cannot look at Andrew Peeke specifically and tell me that he is better than David Jiricek. You drag David Jiricek all the way to Western Canada, and you still sit him for Andrew Peeke, who was just refuses to generate any kind of offense and like was perfectly acceptable defensively, but is doing almost nothing. he was fine defensively. He creates no offense. What is he here for? You know? And I'm so tired of watching this team get shot in the foot by mystifying coaching decisions. Because that's what it is. It's the coaching decisions, and like players have to be better. Elvis has to be better than he was last night. I think everyone knows that. I think players have been underperforming.
But if they only score one goal, then I'm not going to be mad at Elvis. I agree, Elvis. We've done this thing with Elvis where it's like we love him, but he's not the best. Like we know that, and we know that the Jackets have a problem, and we know that the Jackets, if they had a better team or if Elvis was in a better situation, then yes, he could probably take you to the playoffs and win a cup. Well, guess what? The Jackets don't have that team. And Elvis isn't going anywhere now, it seems like, because, one, nobody wants to trade for him because of his contract, which is, okay, that's what happened when you signed him. We all knew this. When they signed that huge contract, we knew we were going to be with him for a long time. But again, Jay, like there's so many other issues with this team. You're right. Their Jackets, their forwards aren't getting any help from their defensemen in terms of offense. And they're not even looking that good on defense. None of them. Like Provorov, like what is he doing out there? Like he's like, I don't know. There's guys that it's all downhill at this point. Luckily, it's turned to where, like I said, it's good to be going downhill. And it's actually like, it's funny. Like we can laugh about this now, but it is also like in the future, is this team just going to continue to look like this? Because it's choppy play. It's no chemistry. It's inconsistent line mates. It's like if the Blue Jackets are never going to build chemistry together if they're not playing the same guys. Like it doesn't – I understand like, oh, this line's not working. Let's mix it up. But at the same time, like none of these lines are working. We've tried everything. Okay? You can't just – I don't know. It's crazy is what it is. I know we have to hit a pause, so I'll let you do that, but –
Yeah. Let's take a break, and then I want to keep talking about this line combo because I've kind of noticed the same thing, but I have a couple of things I want to point out in regards to that. So we'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you guys about Indeed because we're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match. With Indeed, if you need to hire, Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and they've got a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. You can use them for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster, and they don't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent survey. I haven't had to job hunt for a little bit, but when I did, Indeed was the place I went to, and it's the only one that I have used in my 15 years of being in the workforce. So listeners of this show are going to get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. So if you haven't been convinced by this ad, be convinced by that. Indeed.com/locked-on. Support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, I want to talk about the line inconsistency because I agree, and I was just, as you were talking, I was kind of thinking about the Blue Jackets look different than they did last year. There are some things that are better, there are some things that are worse, and I agree that inconsistency has been a big problem, but then it feels almost like if a line works, it gets torn up a couple of games later to try and get a different player going. But when the lines aren't working, it feels like I feel like this Chinikov, Sillinger, Gaudreau line, they had one good game and then have had a stretch of bad ones. And now we're looking at that like, okay, well, they had that one good game, so we'll just keep them together. The Fantilli, Jenner, Roslovic line makes less than no sense to me. because Jack Rostovich isn't a top 6 player. Boone Jenner is a winger, and Fantilli is a center, and they're in the wrong place. So like, I wish that I had a little bit more insight into why these things are happening. You know, I wish I had insight from Vincent into, okay, why are you keeping this line together? Why is this player continually getting ice time when he hasn't earned it? You know, like, and why are players that have earned it not getting any ice time? Ken Johnson had less than 10 minutes of 5-on-5 ice time last night. He was the best player on the ice for the Blue Jackets in basically every metric. He was excellent offensively and defensively, and he gets no ice time. And I don't understand what they want from him. But let's kind of, is there anything positive that we can say about last night's game? So this episode is not just us complaining for 30 minutes. Like, what did you see in last night's game that like has made you hopeful that things are going to change for the better, if anything?
Dude, nothing. I mean, honestly, like I really enjoyed the development of Dmitry Voronkov. I think he is an example of a player that cashes in on opportunities, which I've said all year. I feel like the Jackets have just struggled and have failed when they've had chances in front of the goalie and have blown opportunities. Ken Johnson gets that pass over to Dmitry Voronkov, and the Oilers goaltender, whose name is escaping me at this moment, was way out of position, and Dmitry Voronkov banks that home. Like that's what the Jackets need to be doing more of. I know that's a cop-out answer, but and if I could give one thing that I want to see less of, I can't say the power play was good, so I'm not going to go there. But so I'm just going to keep saying more negative. Adam Fantilli was also all alone in front of the goalie at one point last night and decides to pass it all the way over to the wing, which there was nobody there. Like I was flabbergasted when that happened because I was like, he's literally passing to nobody. He was all alone in front of the goalie. Why are these players this confused about how to manufacture offense? Like there's just they want to be good. They want to be able to snap the puck around, but they aren't able to. And part of me wonders at this point if it would be better for them to have a different coach. I don't want to go down that route quite yet, but again, that's those thoughts are starting to creep into my brain because this team is just so unwatchable right now in terms of scoring. Like their scoring's down. And like I don't know how you solve it other than try to get a new mind in there. I don't know how you solve it, Jay.
Yeah, it's so frustrating to sit here and blame a coach who wasn't prepared to be the head coach this season, got the job 4 days before training camp, and is like this. He's not even 50 games into his NHL coaching career. So like, I'm thinking specifically about Jared Bednar's first season with the Avalanche. He came straight out of Cleveland, had a phenomenal season with the Lake Erie Monsters when they won the Calder Cup in 2015-16, and then in his first season with the Avalanche, they were terrible. They had the worst record in the league. They had 48 points in the entire season. Like,
that's bad.
I'm wondering if, and he had some of the same things. So he got hired. I've just pulled up his thing. He was named head coach less than a month before training camp. Had to keep Patrick Roy's assistants after he was replaced by them. And then the second season, they doubled the amount of points that they had. So maybe Pascal Vincent can be the guy, but I don't know. I am maybe clutching at straws a little bit here. Like, I don't want to write him off yet because, again, we're 50 games into his head coach career, you know, and he wasn't prepared for this, and I think that's kind of shown in a lot of this. I don't think he gets fired this season or this off season. I do wonder if Kekalainen is on the way out and if the new GM decides that he wants to make his own coach hiring. But I don't think Yamo is going to fire Vincent, because I think that's him then admitting that he screwed up with 3 coach hirings in a row.
Yeah, I mean, for one, I don't really I know he got thrown into the fire, but also he applied to be the head coach when Brad Larson got hired. So it's like he's been waiting to be a head coach. And I thought with the way that the team came out in the fall, I was like, oh, they're actually playing pretty good. Like maybe this guy is good. And I love what he says in interviews. I think he's got the right mindset. It's just it's not playing out at all. And I know we're in the middle of January and a lot of these players haven't played full NHL season. So I'm honestly gonna lean probably more into that. Like Adam Fantilli's he's playing in his first ever game in Alberta last night. And like, okay, he overthinks a pass completely. Okay, that happens, whatever. I'm sure he won't be doing that by this time next year. I'm sure, hopefully not. Otherwise, he's gonna be a problem to watch because again, a lot of players are just overthinking things, but no, definitely. You're absolutely right. I don't think that there is going to be a change at head coach this year. We know that 2 years is kind of the window that you have because of what happened to Brad Larson. So it's either you got next year to really get it right, and he's going to have
That's
a
kind of
full
how I feel
offseason.
about this is
Yeah.
I think you get 1 year where it's kind of like, okay, it's your first year. We'll see how next year goes. If next year we're still having the same conversations about lineup choices, about line combinations, about this team collapsing in the third period over and over and over and over, then we could talk about a new coach. But as of right now, Pascal Vincent gets this year as kind of like a bye, for me anyway. But I understand where people are coming from in terms of like they've had to watch this team be mediocre for so long that giving it's just extending the window, and the Blue Jackets should be entering into a window where they are competitive. They've got all of these young guys coming in who look good. They've got Johnny Gaudreau kind of in the peak of his career right now. He's underperforming. Patrick Laine is in the peak of his career. Zach Werenski, when he's healthy, and I think that's going to be a big thing. Hopefully Werenski is back against Calgary, which we'll talk about in tomorrow's episode. But I think that's been a big loss. And I don't know that people have really kind of looked at that. I think because they're so used to seeing the Blue Jackets without Werenski for the past couple of seasons, that he was doing great last season before he got hurt. He's third on the team in points this season, and he's been missing for the last 10 games. So,
That's
there's only...
That's terrible that he's third in points and he's missed as much time as he has, and he's a defenseman.
Mm-hmm. It's been rough. It's been rough. But let's talk a little bit more about goaltending, because the drama just kind of keeps on keeping on. So we'll talk about how Elvis was and what's next for the goaltending in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I'm going to tell you guys about Sleeper, because we are over halfway through the season right now, and I don't know about you, but I am ready for the season to be over. But regardless of that, you can win big by playing Daily Fantasy Hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. They're our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your money in those contests. All you have to do is pick whether guys like McDavid, Draisaitl, Gaudreau are going to record more or less of their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. They've also got the NFL, the NBA, baseball, college football. Obviously, I pay attention to hockey because that's the only sport I really care about. But if you care about other sports, you can do that on Sleeper as well. Entries can be made in under a minute. And all you need to do to win 100 times your money is correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Start paying attention, nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. Once again, that is code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. All right, let's talk about Elvis, because since he talked about being mad and pulling the monster out of him, he's gone 0-2. He's allowed 8 goals in 2 games. And I don't necessarily think that the Devils game is on him, because the Devils had a good game. I don't think he was very good against the Oilers. And I know that we talked about this a little bit earlier in the episode where, you talked about, well, they only scored 1 goal. He can only do so much. But if you're allowing 4 goals on, 24 shots, you have to be better,
I mean, there was 1 goal where Erica Branson just checked Zach Hyman into him. Like, that wasn't Elvis's fault.
That one I will give Elvis, because, and I know he was mad about it afterwards. I would be too. But why are you, as a defenseman, gonna push someone into your own goalie and then get mad when they fall on the goalie? Just a real
boneheaded defenseman plays.
That was vintage Erica Branson.
That was
last
vintage,
night, and he's been good this season. Like, I want to.
Yes.
I feel like I've given Branson credit where it's due. He's been good for the team this season. That was vintage last season, Erica Branson. So now we come to a conversation of what happens against Calgary. Do they play Tarasov, who arguably has been worse than Elvis in his last 2 games than Elvis was in his last 2 games, allowing 11 goals? Do you rotate the tandem? Do you keep playing Elvis and hope that he gets out of his slump and, returns to kind of the Elvis that we saw at the beginning of the season? Either because you want to keep him around or because you want him to raise his trade value. Or do you give him a break? Do you play with Daniil Tarasov? Do you hope that he rebounds from his last 2 poor starts? Like, remember, 2 months ago when I talked about how happy I was to not be worried about the goaltending on this team? I miss those days.
Hey, we still got Jet Graves, who needs to play better, because the Syracuse Crunch are closing that gap on that North Division. But and I don't pay that much attention to Monsters games. I don't know if that's all his fault, but I've seen they've lost some close ones. Anyway, I still feel okay about the goaltending room. Tarasov, I still think is going to have a bright future. I think the fact that Tarasov and Elvis are both giving up absurd amounts of goals definitely still speaks more to the structure of this team and how it's built defensively. The fact that Andrew Peak is in and out, is in the lineup every night. And dude, we roasted Andrew Peak in the offseason. So for us to be getting as much of him as we have, I can't put it all on the Tendies right now. I think Daniil is going to play good against the Flames. If they do choose to do that, I think he's going to play good. Remember, he hadn't played a bunch of games in 9 months, and then he played a bunch of games in a row. So for him to get normal NHL season rest now would be good. Now, that all being said, and this goes back to the coaching thing, if I'm Pascal Vincent, I'm knocking on Elvis's hotel room door and I'm being like, you cool if I play Daniil Tarasov tonight? And then, regardless of the answer, just say, too bad. We're playing him anyway. That's kind of where I wish, and I know obviously Mike Babcock was not the guy. That's very clear. But just an older head coach that just would just tells guys how it is. Torts. Torts does that. Torts was not afraid to just tell a player that he stinks right now. And I wish Pascal Vincent would just go to Elvis and be like, listen, you stink right now. We need to play Daniil Tarasov. Because we got to figure out how to win games. And one of these goalies is going to do it. I don't know who yet. I can't believe the race has dragged on this long. Be it that Daniil hasn't taken over yet or Elvis hasn't really taken over yet. It's frustrating, but it's still a competition. I know these guys are obsessed. Well, Elvis really is obsessed with who is the number 1 goaltender in the organization. Well, go win it then. Like, go win it. Like, if you would have lost that game last night 2-1 to Edmonton, we would be on this podcast today being like, Elvis is playing his left leg off right now. Like, it's awesome. But he's not. So I don't know. There's the goal. Yeah. Yeah. I wish we could go back to a few months ago when we were all happy. And I'm sure once the offseason comes around, we'll be like, this goaltending room looks pretty good. But we'll see.
Yeah. We'll probably dive into that a little bit more tomorrow in terms of who's going to play in goal for Calgary, whether that's the right decision or not. Probably they won't name a starting goalie until after we record, but we'll see how it goes. Tomorrow, we're going to preview the game as a whole because I don't know that the Blue Jackets and the Flames have faced off yet this season.
I think you're correct on that.
I am just double checking. Oh no, the Blue Jackets won in Nationwide 3-1.
Oh, that's right. That was the hit. That was a.
Oh yeah, that was when they tried to murder Patrick Laine. So
yeah, I forget. I even forget who that was by now.
There's definitely going to be some kind of fireworks tomorrow. So we'll talk about all of that on tomorrow's episode. See if the Blue Jackets can sweep the season series against the Flames. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube. You can find us on Sirius XM, and you can also find the Blue Jackets game on Sirius XM. Catch every period of the Blue Jackets hometown broadcast with Sirius XM on the SXM app. Bob McGallagher does a fantastic job doing the radio play-by-play. All you have to do is look for Columbus Blue Jackets, and you will find the game on there. I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find Hayden over at HaydenH971. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email us at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.